Once food and energy become so expensive, the government can no longer control the people. Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not the first time that this has happened. It's not the last time that it's going to happen. And right now it's happening in more than one countries around the world. So when I first saw this article this morning, I was not surprised because I know that it's coming not only to other countries, but to Western nations as well. There's a couple of things in this article, ladies and gentlemen, that I want to point out to you that should concern you, even if you live in the richest country in the world. Food riots in Sri Lanka turned deadly as protesters beat up police, burned down politicians' houses. And some of you may be cheering at that. Yes, get the police, get the politicians. But, ladies and gentlemen, when law and order breaks down, even the police have to go home and take care of their families. When law and order breaks down, the politicians are in their bunkers, leaving you to fend for yourself. That there should be enough to convince anyone to prepare, unless they believe that they live in a fantasy world where everything will be perfect all of the time. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm only going to skim through this article, okay? I will leave a link to this article and a pinned comment under this video, okay? Here they say that in Iran, right, not only Sri Lanka, but in Iran, there have been protests that has led to arrests and the ousting or the chanting for the ousting of their president. Why? Because in Iran, ladies and gentlemen, most of you probably already know this, they're having super high inflation. And the government has had to cut their subsidies that they had on foods. Many people don't understand that even in our Western world, even in these so-called rich countries, governments still subsidize foods. So what they do, ladies and gentlemen, is this. They tax you, then they take that money that they take from you, and then they subsidize things to make you used to that price. That way, whenever there is some kind of a crisis, the people look to government to keep prices down. You see how that works? It's all about controlling the people. But once food and energy become so expensive, the government can no longer control the people. The people are going to go out there and say, what in the world is going on? I am hungry. And that is what they're doing right now. And for those of you that don't think that that will happen in the United States of America, eventually it will. Because it all comes down to the monetary system, right, number one, and the policies by which we are governed, number two. And when the policies fail and the monetary system fails, what else do you have? You have nothing but yourselves and everyone else that is very angry at the system as a whole. And what do people do? When it comes down to the basic level, when people get hungry and they get angry, they go out there and they do bad stuff. And in reference to Iran, they say here, we are seeing protests throughout the country, in urban and rural areas, throughout the very vast and diverse Iranian population. So it's not isolated to just the populated areas. And they go on to talk about Sri Lanka here. In Sri Lanka, where protesters are angry at the soaring prices of everyday commodities, including food, they have burned down homes belonging to 38 politicians as the crisis-hit country plunged further into chaos, with the government ordering troops to shoot on sight. How many times have I told you that government is there for government? Their government is ordering troops to shoot on sight. And the disgraceful thing about it is that some of the troopers, they will follow orders. Why? Because they are orders. It says that police in the island nation said on Tuesday that in addition to the destroyed homes, 75 others have been damaged as angry Sri Lankans continue to defy a nationwide curfew to protest against what they say is the government's mishandling of the country's worst economic crisis since 1948. For those of you that have been with me for a while, you'll remember me saying that when things start to go south, that it will start in other countries first. And here this tweet says, riots in Sri Lanka after the local green movement's ESG organic farming beliefs were implemented into law. We're going to get back to this here in a second. He continues to say that since this implementation of the ESG, organic farming beliefs, the crops have failed and there is not enough food. People are beating up police and burning down politicians' houses. Don't let it happen here. Avoid ESG. Let's take a quick look at what ESG is. We've talked about this before. Pretty much putting it simply, ESG is a social credit scores for corporations and countries. It is something that is being implemented at the corporation scale, and then it is going to be implemented on a country scale all the way down to the people. All right, let's go ahead and take a look real quick what ESG stands for. That way you can have an understanding how this is detrimental to our sovereignty as human beings, let alone to our sovereignty as citizens and nations. I figured that this site, ladies and gentlemen, would do ESG justice. Okay, this is from the Harvard Law School Forum on Corporate Governance. All right, understand where we're headed to here. Understand that a lot of the things that are happening around the world, as far as shortages go, have a lot to do with ESG. But what is ESG, ladies and gentlemen? Well, let's take a look. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. But how does that apply to what I just said about it being a tool that is to be used to strip away the sovereignty of nations, corporations, and the sovereign citizen as well? All right, so we're back to the Harvard site here. Here it says the E of ESG captures energy efficiencies, carbon footprints, greenhouse gas emissions, deforestation, biodiversity, climate change, and pollution mitigation, waste management, and water usage. So that is what the E captures. The S covers labor standards, wages and benefits, workplace and broad diversity, racial justice, pay equity, human rights, talent management, community relations, privacy and data protection, health and safety, supply chain management and other human capital and social justice issues. The G covers the governing of the E and the S. So ESG is a governing party that ensures that the world, not just a country or a single corporation, but the world, and eventually that will include you all the way down to the personal level, is a governance party that will make sure that their police state will enforce everything that we just talked about here. It covers the governing of the E and the S categories: corporate board composition and structure, strategic sustainability, oversight, and compliance. And compliance. Oversight. How are they going to have oversight? How are they going to execute compliance? Executive compensation, political contributions, and lobbying, and bribery and corruption. ESG metrics have evolved in recent years to make risk as well as opportunity. In his Dear CEO letter in 2018, BlackRock chairman and CEO Larry Fink wrote that society is demanding that companies, both public and private, serve a social purpose. To prosper over time, every company must not only deliver financial performance, but also show how it is making a positive contribution to society. The problem with this, ladies and gentlemen, is that the positive contribution to society is defined by those few that are in the governance part of ESG. Companies must benefit all of their stakeholders, including stakeholders, employees, customers, and the communities in which they operate. And this here makes it sound really well. It makes it sound really good. Well, that's good that companies are going to benefit their societies and stuff like that, but they're going to benefit society according to the definitions of what benefit is to the governing party of the ESG model. He goes on to say, companies must ask themselves, what role do we play in the community? How are we managing our impact on the environment? Are we working to create a diverse workforce? Are we adapting to technological change? Are we providing the retraining and opportunities that our employees and our businesses will need to adjust to an increasingly automated world? Are we using behavioral finance? Are we using behavioral finance and other tools to prepare workers? ESG in practice, under the current disclosure regime applicable to public companies listed in the United States, there is no affirmative duty to provide disclosure on ESG matters. As a practical matter, however, it can be anticipated that important stakeholders such as investors, insurance companies, lenders, regulators, and others will increasingly look to companies' disclosures to allow them to evaluate whether those companies have embraced ESG agendas. So pretty much saying, ladies and gentlemen, in real fancy words, is that if your company is not adhering to the ESG standards that have been set forth, all right, by the governance party of the ESG, the G part, that you will be overlooked. And that in the future, if you're not playing ball, then you will be set to the side and you will not be able to do business. That's what ESG is, ladies and gentlemen. I would highly recommend that you look into ESG and educate yourself on it. I believe I did a video about this a while back, but you know, those videos never get too many views. To continue on with this original article, the Ministry of Defense on Tuesday ordered troops to shoot anyone found damaging state property or assaulting officers or officials after violence left at least 9 people dead on Monday. It is unclear if all of the deaths were directly related to the protests, where more than 200 people have been injured. The nation of 22 million is grappling with a devastating economic crisis, with prices of everyday goods soaring, and there have been widespread electric shortages for weeks. Since March, thousands of anti-government protesters have taken to the streets, demanding that the government resign. Energy, ladies and gentlemen, is food. All right, oil is food. Fertilizer is oil, but fertilizer is food. All of these things play an integral part in order for us to sustain the standard of living that we've been used to. However, through ESG, just like they said, they are going to go ahead and manage not only corporations and countries, but also the individual. You will one day have your little passport that has all of your information in it, and that will allow you to buy 2 pounds of beef a month, if you can afford it, and that will keep track of everything you do. And then I believe that it is after that, after the people have grown sick of being manipulated and controlled for even longer than we have now, it is after that that people will rise. But violence will come to the streets, ladies and gentlemen. It's inevitable. Violence will come to the streets because when people get hungry, they get violent. If there's no way for them to get food, they're going to try to get food one way or another. Ask yourself, what would you do? What would you do if you had no idea where your next meal was going to come from, how you were going to feed your children the next day, your family didn't have any food, and your neighbors don't have any food? What would you do? You would go to where the food is. And if there's no food there, you're going to get angry. And you're going to do things like they did here. And as this is happening, ladies and gentlemen, I must have missed it on this, but as this is happening, guess what the rich are doing? The rich are gathering their multiple passports to other countries in order to try to get away from the mayhem, either once it starts or right before it starts. I'm pretty sure that you've heard that there's been a pretty large uptick of foreign passports being acquired by the rich, by people that can afford it, pretty much, which nowadays is the rich. Because if you want to buy a passport into a country, you have to be willing to show that country that you will be a financial benefit to them, all right? They don't just let you in. You have to be willing to be a financial benefit, and sometimes you have to buy yourself into citizenship to that country or just to get a passport to the country. You have to actually buy it by proving to them that, hey, yeah, I'm going to be able to spend $1.5 million in your economy when I get there. Or, hey, yeah, I'm going to be able to spend $1 billion, depending on how rich you are and what country it is that you want to go to. So the fact that people around the world are now starting and have been for a while now, Sri Lanka is just the latest, are starting and have been rioting and committing violence against, I guess you can say, political officials and law enforcement, and that is starting to spread now to other countries. Ladies and gentlemen, human nature is the same no matter where you go in the world, especially when it's to the core of your basic needs. Okay, so prepare, ladies and gentlemen. All right, I'm not trying to scare you with this. I hope that you're proud of me. I haven't raised my voice once, and I haven't, gotten ticked off once, although this ESG thing really, really bothers me. All right, so I hope that you're proud of me that I haven't lost it today, and I try not to henceforth, all right? But this is serious. Prepare, because what you see happening in other countries for those same problems that are going to be aggravated here in the U.S., those are the things that you should be preparing for now. Lack of food, lack of water, lack of protection from those that we usually regard as people that are supposed to be there to protect us, like the police, law enforcement, and politicians hiding when we need them the most in order to put forth policies that actually benefit us. But eventually, they'll run out of runaway, and there's nothing that they'll be able to do. So protect yourselves. I hope that you have a great weekend and that you're already having a great weekend. We will see you tomorrow on Sunday during our live stream at 9 a.m. Alaska time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll see you then, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great day. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and families. I'm Alaska Prepper. I am out. Ladies and gentlemen, I understand that not everyone is in the part of their preparedness plan where they should be storing long-term freeze-dried food. But if you are, take a look at Nutrient Survival. I stand behind this food because it is the most nutrient-dense food in the market. It tastes great, they have outstanding customer service, and the company is run by great people that I call my friends. You're not going to find a more nutrient-dense food that tastes good and is reasonably priced when compared to other major brands. I wouldn't stand behind Nutrient Survival if I didn't personally use it and love it. So feed your freedom with Nutrient Survival.